Okay, so let's connect to the energy of the week, which is Chaye Sarah. So we spoke a little bit about it last week. How we can find, I guess, most of the lesson, most of the consciousness, like in the root of, like the first words of the portion. We could speak, for an hour just about the two words Lech Lecha, or the word Vayera, or Chayesara, or even Bereshit, or Pinchas, like just the title of it, could say it all. And it's interesting because, you could just take that example and, try to apply it to other things. In essence, you could, right? I mean, there are people that just with your date of birth and your name, they can do like a whole chart, in numerology and all sorts of things, right? And like we don't even think about those things, right? But there are some people that have like the science or the art or whatever you call it in numerology that I truly believe in. I'm not at all, I could speak about it because I'm Gemini and I can talk about just about anything, but I'm not expert at all in numerology. And then you have people that have studied their entire life, like 30, 40 years, just about numerology, and just with your name and your date of birth, they can do like a whole chart. They can do like a whole volume just about like your entire life, your date of birth and your name. That's all. And so like from there you can grasp, like a little bit, a tiny bit of the idea that, you just take like one word and you can say so much out of it, and you don't know nothing about like the entirety of the portion. You just take like the name and it encapsulates so much. EMC square encapsulates so much, and it's not like I would say like Hebrew letters, like secret language or whatever. It's like mathematics and Hebrew letters not so far. Gematria is also stemming from that, and it's full of secrets, right? And the same derives about numerology, whatever we know about numerology. All that to say that when we're speaking about secret, it means that there are things that are hidden, and they're hidden for a reason. And if you're thinking about it, like, why is it that it needs to be hidden, and who would or should it be hidden from? Like, you take the Kabbalah, for the longest time until actually not so long ago, it wasn't open for the layman. It wasn't open for the layman. It wasn't open for, like, what would I say, like even like 20, 30 years ago. The Rav and Karen started the work like about like 40 some years ago. But even then, they struggled most of their lives to spread the Kabbalah. So, for as long as we know, like 5,000 years, the topic was taboo. The topic was taboo. It was like, even today, you have like a lot of people saying, "Oh no, Kabbalah, I don't want anything to do with it. You need to be 40. You need to study all those things." And you know what? There is some truth to that. What is the truth in that? The truth is that a secret is something to be guarded. And why is it that it needs to be guarded? It's because there is light to be revealed in it. But like anything, if there is light to be revealed in it, it means that if it is given to us like for free, you can just grab it like just about anywhere without any effort, then the light that you're going to get from it is not so much. So there are generations of people that have attempted to reveal Kabbalah, and it wasn't the right timing, or they channeled that it was the biggest secrets in the universe, but he had to be just in small numbers. Like 300 years ago, 400 years ago, like all the righteous in Poland, all the righteous in Israel, the Ari, the Baal Shem Tov. I mean, there is a list of a few hundreds of them. But if you take each one of them, none of them had like thousands of students. Like the only teacher really that had like a big amount of students or followers was Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva had 24,000, which, by the way, most of them passed for a plague. But that's it. Like you take like all those numbers, it's only after their death that they are resembling, that they are gathering like so many followers, but like 400 years later. You take Abraham, in his time, he had like a few followers. You take Noah, he had barely his wife and his kids, right? Nobody wanted to hear. And that was the thing, that was the craziness, is that even though you have like the biggest secret to reveal, nobody wants to hear it. Nobody wants to hear it because, okay, we can say, okay, this person doesn't have a vessel, which is a very dangerous thing to say. After all those years, I've been teaching Kabbalah for 20 years, which is not much. There are people that are teaching Kabbalah for their entire life. And even after 20 years, everything can snap in a second and it's like you didn't learn anything. And so with all this knowledge, we come and we're trying to encapsulate and we, to share, like Hillary is now teaching Kabbalah apparently. So, whatever that means. But you know what? When we're channeling, I promise you that when we're channeling, rarely do we channel for ourselves, by the way. Did you notice that? Rarely do we channel for ourselves. Most of the time, we channel for other people. Like you have a friend who is in need, who has a hard time, and you go for coffee and you have a conversation and you have that feeling, maybe in the midst of it, maybe after the fact, you tell to yourself, oh my gosh, like, all those things were coming to me. I don't like, you didn't even feel like it wasn't me talking. Like, I don't even remember what I said. Which are all, by the way, indications that we were channeling. What are those indications that we're channeling? We don't remember. Okay, there are people that have really bad memories, and there are some people that have conditions, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about that when you channel, it involves other people. So it's not for you, it's for the sake of sharing. You're receiving it, and it's for the sake of sharing. Again, demystifying like the whole, is there anything wrong with receiving? Absolutely not, as long as it's used as a means to the end. I want to receive everything. I want to receive everything. I don't want to even be selective about what it is that I want to receive. I want to receive everything. Why? Because the light just wants to share with us infinite, right? So I don't want to limit to anything. Just bring it on. As long as it is for the sake of sharing. And you know what? As we are becoming more and more honest with ourselves, as we evolve spiritually, we realize, wow, I was really such a selfish person. I was like, just keeping it for myself. At the end of the day, like we're getting messages in so many venues and so many ways. Like I was watching last night, just because I'm curious and I love to watch different things. I was watching this Remini something, Leah Remini show on Netflix about what's the name now? Scientology. Very interesting. I mean, you need to take like maybe like 75% out of it that is like, personal experience, and I'm nobody to judge, right or wrong. What I can say is that it put me into questioning my sincerity about, our desire to truly share the wisdom without making it exclusive. What does it mean? If we are in one way or another, today you're in Kabbalah, the next day you're into Sufism, the next day you're into Scientology, the next day the Miracle Course, the next day Lenhart, the next day like we have accumulated so much experiences. But then it made me realize, I'm still in Kabbalah and I'm not going anywhere. But it made me realize that in so many ways, I am not allowing the light to flow through me 100%. Why? Because in some ways, I am being exclusive, thinking that this specific wisdom is the only thing that counts. And you can connect to God only through that. Even if we're not teaching that, we're not saying it in this way. If somebody would tell me, I remember times that I was like in Toronto, and and somebody would tell me, oh no, I decided to stop coming because I decided to go to the Buddhist church. Good for you. And I would be like, as honest and sincere that I could be on the outside, but inside I was like really pissed. I was really like, I spent like dedicated, invested like 5 years, teaching this person one-on-one. And this guy's just like, without like overnight, what just happened? You break up with me like over a text message? Shame on you. But, you need to be like, like cool and, the Kabbalah teacher, and good for you, and I wish you luck and be well. But inside, go F yourself. Although I wouldn't say that because we're spiritual people, But the reactive system, Satan, exists in the most spiritual people. But the point being is that, that was just like one example, but I have personally dozens of examples. Not just with people that would want to try something else. So they just came as visitors. They came for a month, for a year, for a course, for a book, and then they want to try something else. God is everywhere. It's in every particle. It is in every atom. It is in the child that crosses the street. It is in the beggar that is knocking on your door. Like the light force of the Creator is everywhere. So when we're talking about those things, I'm opening the Zohar and I'm saying, okay, you know what? I'm going to speak about Chayei Sarah, but I used like half of our time to talk about, something that I didn't even plan. And I guess there was a reason why I needed to speak about it, and you needed to hear that your connection to the light force of the Creator is between you and the light force of the Creator. It is not between you and your teacher, between you and an institution or a temple or whatever it is. If today this is what it is, great. But it's not marriage. The marriage or the bound that exists today and forever, it is between your soul and its source. It's not even between our body consciousness, because our body consciousness is nothing compared to the entirety, to the wholeness of the soul. And so, I guess something is going to come out from what I just shared. Anyway, let's continue. So I was supposed to start with the first verse of Chayei Sarah. ויהיו חיי שרה 100 שנה ו20 שנה ו7 שנים. רבי יוסף פתח ואמר, ויישאו את יונה ויתולוהו אל הים, ויעמוד הים מזעפו, אחא איד להסתכלה ממתת הרישה ימה, על עד יונה ולה הרישת עלי הרעה, כיוון דאבה הזל בגין דלה תשרה עלה. שכינתה ימה עמאי אחד בכד אבל הזל. So the Zohar goes into like the first verses or the first words that there is into this portion, and there was the life of Chayei Sarah that was 127. She was 127, but this is not how the Zohar explains it. I mean, it's taken from the Torah. This is word to word from the Torah. ויהיו חיי שרה 100 שנה ו20 שנה ו7 שנים. This is exactly word to word from the Torah. And at the same time, the Zohar repeats those words and explains 100 שנה ו20 שנה ו7 שנים. It's interesting that you wouldn't say that somebody that is 127, you wouldn't say this person is 100 years and 20 years and 7 years, right? You would say this person is 127. So did the Torah need to use these extra words? 100 years, 20 years, 7 years. Did the Torah need to use those extra words? No. And the reason is that it has nothing to do, like the way that it is describing, even if it is talking about Chayei Sarah that was 127, it took this opportunity, the Torah was used as an opportunity to discuss her age, but nothing to do with her age. I mean, it has to do with her age because we're talking about her age, but it is, again, a metaphor. What is the metaphor? The metaphor is that she was 100 years in wisdom. So imagine that you're taking somebody that is like 16, 18 years old, and you have a conversation with this young man or this young woman. And at the end of the conversation, you think for yourself, wow, this girl is really smart. She's really smart for her age. I mean, you can speak with a 6 year old and you can have that same conclusion. Wow, she's so smart for her age, right? So you would say, wow, this girl really has the wisdom or the intelligence of somebody who is 20 and she's just 6, right? So you would say about her that she's 20 years in a mind, but really physically she's 6 years old. So that's basically the example that I'm taking to explain what I'm explaining, is that in wisdom, she was an old person. Because an old person very often, or somebody who is sage, somebody with a lot of wisdom, what is the caricature or the drawing of somebody who is like really wise? You're not going to draw somebody that is like, like 20 years old, right? Like with brown, short hair, with a, baseball hat. You would have somebody who is like really like, what's the magician from Harry Potter? What's his name? Gandorf or whatever his name is, whatever. So basically, the image is like, like it's a long, like a tall person, long robe, long beard and white beard and whatever. But this is how we imagine somebody who is wise, somebody that is old in age. So she's 100 years, compared to a person who has like a lot of wisdom. And then she's 20 years. What's the relation to the 20 years? The relation to the 20 years is, I don't know if you knew that, but it is taught in physics and biology that there are 3 cycles really in the human cycles of the cells. There are 3 cycles of 7 years. So 7 years, the cells die and they rejuvenate. It's like like the phoenix, like they are reborn. And then there is a second cycle until the age of 14, and then a third cycle until the age of 21. And from 21, that's when there is decay. Now the cells are dying, but they don't rejuvenate. Side note, if the cells of the human being are able to, the human body are able to do that 3 times, it is innate in us to repeat this cycle. So we didn't figure it out yet, but it is innate in us. It is part of us to continuously rejuvenate our cells completely every 7 years. But after the third cycle, because of our limitations, first with this limitation, that maybe we don't believe that we are immortal and that we can be healthy forever. At the age of 21, there is what we call decay that starts taking over. And so she was 20, meaning that she was looking as young as a 20-year-old, but she remained in that physical state of immortality. That they had the secrets, they unlocked the secrets of immortality. So at the age of 127, she looked like a 20-year-old. It's incredible, no? I mean, you see today, there are some people that have like the metabolism of, like looking like super young. So yeah, you can't really tell like, like when the person is 20, 30, 40, whatever, but then the person is like 80 or 90 years old and then they look like 20 or 30 years younger than the age. There are some people that have this metabolism, but why some people have this metabolism and then you have other people that are 60 and they look 90? Right? It doesn't make sense. So you could say it's it's their nutrition, what they ate, what they did to their body, and drinking and smoking and all those things. I know people that smoked and they looked very vital and very like my grandfather passed away when he was like 96 years old and he was smoking like 3 packs of cigarettes a day. Okay, he was trying to kill himself, but intentionally. But that's side note. Seriously, as long as I remember, I would ask him, "Hey, how you doing?" He says, "I'm okay." Okay, what's going on? I'm waiting. Waiting for what? For it to end. He was just waiting for the end. For the probably like the last 30 years of his life. He was grumpy, French like the typical French. Grumpy, being annoying and obnoxious, and not that all French people are like that because I'm French also, like partial French also, but like I take the best part of each one of them. So anyway, going back to Chaye Sarah, what about the 7? When you take the example of the psychology talks a lot about what the inner child. The inner child is between 5 to 8 year old, and this is why this window between 5 and 8 year old, parents have to be extremely careful in their education because this is when the child is building the building blocks of their belief system that's going to last for the rest of their lives. It is between 5 and 8 years old that they're building most of their belief systems. But spiritually speaking, and this is what the Zohar refers to about the 7 years, is that in that age, they are not just naive, they're pure. They're pure. And so she was 127 years old, but she was as pure in her mind, in her intentions, in her desires, as a 7 years old. So the reason that the Torah, the Zohar, is sharing with us this story about Chaye Sarah, which is saying about the life of Sarah, but you're talking the whole portion is about her death. So why you call the portion about Chaye Sarah? Because even though physically she's gone, what she's leaving behind are those lessons that we can, as we talk about her and as we're connecting to her energy, and this is why you have people that are traveling to Israel or wherever there is like a righteous grave, they go to the grave to connect to this energy. This is the energy of Chaye Sarah. The energy of Chaye Sarah is that you can connect to true wisdom. You can connect to youth and immortality. This portion is about immortality, but it's about Chaye Sarah. This is what Chaye Sarah inspires. And you can connect also to simplicity, to being naive, not naive in a way that people can fool you. To be naive that, like you're dodging bullet with all the nastiness and all the negativity that is out there. So you would have somebody who is like really naive, they wouldn't see any of it. Like you could have taken like bullets from everywhere, being scarred like 100 times between your family, your children, your neighbors, your friends, your ex-colleagues, your ex-bosses, or whatever it is. You're scarred for life. So you can like even the nose, like you can see somebody who's trying to fool or trying to con another person, like you can smell it like miles away. Somebody who is naive, somebody who is pure, would not have the capacity to see the bad. So what she would do, is that you could be like the worst person in the universe, and she would still see the good in you, and she would still believe in you. Think about it. You have it to some capacity with people that you truly love, and sometimes we don't have a choice. It can be our children. I know parents that have children that are like high maintenance, but it doesn't matter how high maintenance they are. It's your child. It's your DNA. So what does it matter? So there is the history, but in this moment, when you see that child or that friend that you didn't see for 6 months or a year because you were estranged or not talking, whatever, and you see each other, and the only thing that's going to happen in this moment, you're just going to hug each other, and this moment is what's going to count like the most, as if it never was. That hug in this moment, this exchange of like energy and love and forgiveness and mercy, and like just this one moment, just like this one moment. And you know what, those moments are given to you not to remember that you have the capacity to hate, because we do have the capacity to hate. Very often those things are happening just to give us those glimpses of total purity. Very often we're experiencing all sorts of things in our life just so that we can get this very extreme contrast of emotions, of life experience. And it can be just for very short term. Somebody could have had an entire life experience just for these 2 minutes. The only thing that you came to do in this world is to experience this moment, these 2 minutes of just being there in the moment, in the present with this person, and just give them love and just be forgiving and merciful and not worrying, not caring about the past, and just now, just like this now. And 2 minutes later, you can hate each other again, by the way, yes? But you came to experience after 20 years, after 5 years, after a year, after 6 months, doesn't matter, that there was darkness and that there was, like a resentment and all. You came to experience the contrast. There wouldn't be a contrast between all the bad and this good moment if you did not experience the bad. Does it change anything about what this person did and what this person is? Because it's very possible that the person is weak in their will, in their desire, in their connection, in their elevation, in the wisdom, but they served a lesson to you. Can you imagine there are people that have like the least sparks of light, and they come in this world to just make you experience a moment of contrast? Do you understand this idea of contrast? They came to this world to make you experience this moment of contrast. Most of your experience with this person is bad. You're traumatized. But they, if you think about it, if they have led you to make this choice to become more mature, independent, believing in yourself, that was a choice. You know what? You needed to be in this experience of 20 years of abuse to come to that moment of contrast and say, no more. No more. I love myself, I respect myself, and I would not allow another person to make me feel this way. You know what? Some people need to experience that for this life lesson. That life lesson can sometimes be accelerated if a person is following a spiritual path, some level of spiritual path, because I would consider that Kabbalah is a spiritual path, but we can find also very robotic, path with Kabbalah, with any spirituality, with any religion, with any self-help movement or whatever it is that you call it. Why? Because at the beginnings, they are all very enchanting and new and exciting. But anything that you do with repetition becomes a habit. So even if it is a wisdom, it is no more wisdom if it has become robotic. It's crazy. So this is why we always need to go on this quest of reinventing ourselves all the time, because if we do not reinvent ourselves and we're on the path, we're on the track of robotic consciousness, you might do like the most elevated practice, the most elevated path, philosophy. The moment that you do it, it's just part of the human nature. Anything that is done repeatedly leads you to robotic consciousness. Anything. And so this is why it must have taken a person like this tremendous effort to remain in that place, to remain in that 7 years old pure mind. So we have a good heart and everything, but as long as we know that there are things that are upsetting us, aggravating us, we're not in that 7 years old. So, if you were venturing to thinking, oh, I'm like Sarah, I'm like her, there are some times, so many other times that I am actually forgiving and merciful and simple, and no, we're not like her. There are times we want to aspire to become like her by practicing what she is and asking for help from the universe, from God, from the study or whatnot. But first, let's admit to ourselves that we're not there. This is not to put anybody down. This is just for us to look in the mirror, and it is in those times that we're getting upset, that we're judging others, that we are still victim about certain circumstances. If you think that we are not in that space, turn on the news and see how you react. Anyway, any questions? Any questions, comments? I like it. It means that everything was clear. Right? I also like it that it was busy tonight, so thank you very much all for joining. So if you feel, I've said it a long time ago, but since we don't remember, I'll remind everybody, if you feel that somebody can benefit from those sessions, please share with them the link, and the more the merrier. Okay, thank you very much, everybody, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Bye-bye.